Hello chess friends and welcome to Rad1 chess channel and welcome to the round 6 of the Altibox Norway chess tournament in 2019. So today again we had the really nice games and I wanted to show you the Armageddon game played by Magnus Carlsen against Ding Liren. The first game ended in a draw, and you know that if the first game ends in a draw, then we have this so-called Armageddon game in which white has 10 minutes on the clock, black has 7 minutes, and white has to win the game. So I really love this Armageddon games because they're really going up and down, up and down. The evaluation is winning for white, winning for black. It's unbelievable what's going on, and I'm really love these games also because white really has to win. White has to really play for a win. That's why we have this also mistakes in the continuation of their games. So we will see also a couple of mistakes by Magnus Carlsen, which is unbelievable. And he faced Ding Liren. Although Ding Liren is not playing maybe the best of his tournament, but he's still the third ranked player in the world, and we shouldn't forget about that. He managed to draw against Magnus Carlsen in the first game very easily. So let's see now this Armageddon game. You'll see it was really something else. So e5 played by Ding Liren, knight on f3, knight on c6. So far we have the Ruy Lopez with bishop on b5, and now a6, the common theory, bishop on a4, and now knight on f6. We have now the so-called Morphy defense against in the Ruy Lopez, and now we have d3, and here b5 played by Ding Liren. Bishop on b3, and now bishop on c5. And this bishop on c5 will cause many troubles here for Magnus Carlsen. Although you're leaving, you haven't played h6 so far, and you haven't played bishop on e7 in order to protect this knight on f6. So here c3. The idea is of course to create a potential pawn breakthrough with the move d4. Here d6 played by Ding Liren, and now bishop on g5. We see now the problems. You have an active bishop, but you're allowed your opponent to pin you here. And I've played a lot of games, as I've mentioned in my previous video. I played many games against Ding Liren on a chess website. As I mentioned, also he's really a cool guy. He was crushing me all the time, but I was sort of his preparation. And one of the things he mentioned to me, when your opponent is playing this early bishop attack, well, you can don't be afraid to kick it away with the move h6, and after bishop on h4 here to play the move g5. I've played, as I said, many games, and most of the time Ding Liren played these types of lines in which he really kicked away your bishop. So it seems that you have weakened a little bit your pawn structure around the king, but you will see in the continuation that Ding Liren will stay with the king in the center, which is, I think, a brave decision to play against Magnus Carlsen. So here, after g5, bishop on g3, of course, and here now bishop on b6, which is now improving the position simply of this bishop. This bishop is now unchallengeable here. If we evaluate the position, it's still an equal position, but here the dark square bishop is much stronger than here the bishop on g3. So here knight from b to d2, also common idea by white in this Ruy Lopez game. You want maybe to try knight on f1, knight on e3, and then knight on f5, because of course black has also left a little bit the space behind. You cannot play anymore the g6 move, which is very important in order to kick away this potential knight outpost on f5. So knight on a5, also common idea in the Ruy Lopez, attacking the bishop, and now bishop on c2. And now this is the main idea for white, to try somehow to create a pawn breakthrough here in the center, to open here really the light square diagonal. And now knight on h5. Ding Liren goes straight forward for the bishop. He's not allowing here in this still complex middle game, in which of course the position still can get open, the position still can get closed, but here he immediately challenges the bishop. We have a4, also common idea to weaken a little bit the pawn structure here, because Black has gained some space. Of course, in some occasions, black can try maybe c5 and then b5, really fix the queen side. So that's why here a4 by Magnus, and now rook on b8. This is also a common idea to get out of this a file, which could be really deadly, because we want to stay with this bishop on this diagonal, which is, I think, much better. So here b4 by Carlsen, and now knight on g3, an in between move, of course, h takes g3, and now knight on c6. You see now Ding Liren's problems. You cannot castle, of course, because you leave simply your weak h6 pawn. And here knight on f1 by Carlsen. The idea is, as I mentioned, queen on e2, knight on e3, and then create a very annoying outpost here of the knight on f5, because you have really weakened your f5, and your d5 is also sort of a target here. Queen on f6, and now queen on e2, and here knight on e7. Of course, also preventing this knight on f5 ideas. But you see now black has also troubles, because we cannot create an outpost ourselves. We cannot play knight on g6 and knight on f4, which is also an idea for black to continue, because Magnus has a very powerful pawn on g3, so no outposts here possible for black. Here knight on e3 was played by Carlsen, and now h5. A very tricky move here by Ding Liren, creating immediate attack here on the h file. We have bishop on b3, improving the position of the bishop. Now the bishop cannot be challenged anymore by any knight. If you want to compete with this bishop, you have to place your light square bishop on e6, and I think Magnus wouldn't have anything against it if he have to trade off this light square bishops, because this light square bishop is also the main protector of light squares here on d5 and f5. So that's why, if bishop on e6, I think Magnus would immediately here trade off the light square bishop. So that's why c6 at least preventing some knight on d5 ideas. And here Magnus goes 8 takes b5, and here we have 8 takes b5. Here Ding Liren has still this flexible pawn structure. We can also in some occasions try a pawn breakthrough, but with the king in the center, at least we are waiting for the position to be really fixed here. If the position on the king side gets fixed, if the pawns cannot move anymore on the king side, then and only then will castle king side here. So d4 played by Magnus Carlsen, and this was really a mistake here by Magnus. He had an advantage here so far. This d4 is really mistake. Here Ding Liren should have played e takes d4, knight takes on d4, bishop takes, c takes, and queen takes d4. And I think it's not a problem if you try something like rook on d1. We can take this pawn on b4, or we can take this pawn on e4. So I don't know about Magnus' idea here. I think it's not something that you have to worry here. As I said, here simply taking this pawn. I don't see a clear line what Magnus should do here. Maybe knight on f5 would be sort of an idea to create a discovered check here. But okay, here I think Ding Liren could have made some progress, but he played the move g4, and this allows now Magnus to trade off first the pawn on e4, d takes e5 on e5, pardon me, and now we have d takes e5, and now we see knight on h4. Now the knight is very well cemented here, and we are again aiming on this very important f5 square. So Ding Liren really let here Magnus to go into the game with this d4. Magnus, I think, really made a mistake here. Queen on g5 was played by Ding Liren. We are aiming also on this bishop, with this bishop on this knight on e3. We could create really a weak pawn structure after bishop takes on g3, queen takes queen e3, and then queen takes e3. Well, we would have 4 double pawns here on the e and g file, so this could be really deadly here for white. But okay, Magnus simply castled. Here we have now really finally castling also by Ding Liren. As I mentioned, we will only castle when the position of the pawns here gets fixed. So you see, it's not so easy to push pawns here anymore. Rook from A to D1 by Carlsen, and now rook on A8, and king on H2, also an improvement of the king. Here rook on A3 by Ding Liren, and now queen on B2. And this queen on B2, well, maybe now after rook on A7 and rook on D6, Magnus' idea was if you try something like bishop on E3, and then if you try f takes E3, queen takes on E3, then really to place the rook here on F6, and we have also this very annoying threat on G6, so it could be really deadly here for black. But after rook on D6, Ding Liren should have really just only competed with its rook by simply playing rook on D7. This is now again an equal position, because you cannot double up the rooks anymore on the F file. You have to trade off these rooks, and here after rook takes on D7, bishop takes on D7, we can also compete with this bishop by simply playing bishop on E6, and after f takes E6, you see, well, this white's knight would be a little bit paralyzed, because you don't have anymore this potential knight outpost on F5. So maybe, as I said, here after rook on D6, here really rook on D7, at least trade off one rook here in this position leads really to equality. Here instead of that, Ding Liren plays a mistake also. It's the move king on G7, and Magnus uses now immediately this moment he sees, of course, this kind of stuff. He plays the move C4. This is the important thing about this move, is that we really open this diagonal for the queen, and the king is a little bit endangered here, because if this diagonal gets open, this could be really deadly for black. So that's why bishop on C7 was played, and now Magnus plays F4. He wants really to open the file here. G takes F3 was played with en passant, and now rook on D3. Now we want to get off, of course, of the attack, but now you see we have now the immediate threat here is to attack this pawn on E5, which is the main weakness in Ding Liren's camp. So Ding Liren simply took f takes G2, king takes on G2, and now F6, fixing the position. But again, I hope you realize again this main weakness in black's position is this square F5. C5 played by Carlsen. At least he fixes here the position on the queen side, because now we don't have any more the troubles on the queen side. The pieces are very well coordinated on the king side. And now rook on D8 played by Ding Liren. Rook takes on D8, bishop takes on D8, and now queen on E2. Rook on A3 with an attack on the bishop, and here a queen on D3 played by Magnus Carlsen. This is now really an equal position, although white can try this outpost, but it leads only to trade off to more trades of pieces. If you try something like knight on F5, knight takes on F5, knight takes, and here maybe bishop takes on F5, rook takes, and okay, we can maybe grab this pawn, but here at least you have a protector. You have also worries about this bishop, so you see Magnus has to prepare more this outpost knight on F5, so that's why here after rook on A3, queen on D3, which is also a brave idea by Magnus to get into this attack of the rook. So here bishop on C7 played by Ding Liren, and the very good about these bishops is that you can infiltrate with some queens or rooks on the D file. You cannot go on D7 or on D8 because Ding Liren has these bishops, and here finally Magnus plays for the knight outpost on F5. So you see how many moves he needed in order to do that. Here knight takes on F5 was played, knight takes on F5, and now king on F8. This is now I think better, slightly better here for black. Okay, we get out of of this knight outpost. The king is now secured, although the king is a little bit on an unnatural square, but well, there is, I think, a little bit too much dependency about these pieces. You see, the queen is a little bit stuck to the defense of this rook, also stuck a little bit to the defense of this bishop on d3, and here Magnus makes also, well, let me call it at least inaccuracy, playing the queen on c2, which allows now Ding Liren to play the very important move queen on g4, and this is now a completely better position here for black, because again I'm pointing you out that the queen is now used as the defender of this bishop on b3, and now it's also the defender of this e4 pawn, which is really weak. You have to bring some other defenders into the game, and here Magnus plays, of course, rook on f3, because there were also threats bishop on f5, and then push the pawn on h4, because the knight is also the key defender of this h4, but also of this g3 pawn here. So that's why rook on f3, bringing another defender, and here Ding Liren makes, well, again in inaccuracy. Here the best move would have been bishop on e6, because you cannot take really the bishop, because you lose simply this rook on f3. So in the continuation, if you try something rook on e3 in order to get it out of this attack, we have simply bishop takes on b3, rook takes on b3, rook takes on b3, queen takes, and now you see you lose this pawn. Queen on e4, you're basically forced to bring the queen in between, and we can trade off the queens or even take this pawn on b4. But let's evaluate the position. After in this position, I think black cannot simply lose the game. It's something that really Ding Liren has missed here. Instead of that, he played bishop takes on f5, and now we have rook takes on f5, and okay, now we have this important move h4, of course with the threat to take on g3, but Magnus has this in-between check, rook takes on f6, king on g7, now rook on f7, king on g6 was played by Ding Liren, and now queen on f2. Queen takes on g3 was played, queen takes on g3, and now h takes g3. Now bishop on e6. We want the pieces to have connected. We have now also the attack on the bishop, so that's why here bishop on d8 was played by Ding Liren. King on h3, bishop on g5. Ding Liren wants to bring the bishop somehow into the game, but now Magnus goes really behind these pawns. Now the pawns are really weak. Here bishop on f4 was played, and now rook takes on c6, and now Magnus has a better game here. King on g5 was played, and now bishop on f7, of course with the immediate threat to play rook on g6, and here Ding Liren could have maybe make a draw, but he makes really this decisive mistake. He plays the move bishop on d2, and this is now the problem. You should have gone maybe here bishop on e3, and you see now the problems about this bishop on d2. Now comes rook on g6. You have to move the king here on f4. Now you get rook on g4, and here bishop on e3, and in this position Ding Liren resigned, because you have a simple rook on g3, and you have to get out of the of the third rank, and you simply lose the rook. So unbelievable stuff. So Levon Aronian missed the game against Magnus Carlsen. Here Ding Liren also missed, I think, the opportunity at least to draw. So in this tournament Magnus hasn't lost a game. It's unbelievable. He hasn't even played a draw with white, which means that he'll lose the game. He won all of these Armageddon games, which is unbelievable. You see, Ding Liren had his chances. Congratulations also to Ding Liren. He played a very nice game. Let's go back here. As I mentioned, bishop on e6. Here the most important thing that Ding Liren missed here. After rook on e3, we can simply take after a trade of rooks on b3 here. queen on e4, and I think it's game over here for Magnus Carlsen. At least here I think Ding Liren would have easily make a draw here. But let's go back to the decisive mistake. Here in the continuation, after rook on c6, we have now bishop on f7. Here rook on g6. You see bad mistake here with the bishop on d2. Here you get simply into the attack, king on f4, king on rook on g4, king on e3, and this was game over. I'm feeling a little bit sad for Ding Liren. I think he deserved here to win. He played a very good game, but okay, you make one mistake against Magnus, of course you get punished. Still he's unbeatable in this tournament, and okay, maybe we'll see some losing game by Magnus in the continuation of this very nice tournament. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess game with some more Altibox Norway chess tournament games, and you can also watch some other chess tournaments. And if you want to check out maybe the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, check out my best chess games of all time series, and you can also subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best of all.